Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Atick, Executive Chairman of ID4Africa, and I would like to welcome you to the 9th LiveCast episode, which is the second in our Country Progress Report series. Today, we spotlight Tanzania's identity ecosystem, but before we delve into this exciting episode, there are a few reminders I'd like to make. First, if you're watching this in replay on YouTube, please subscribe and activate the bell. Second, if you're interested in joining the community voices today, press the raise your hand button on Zoom at the time when I invite participation. Also, I'd like to remind you that coming up December 3rd, we will have an episode called Digital Public Goods Initiatives as a Pathway to Identity Development. We will open registration Monday for this event. This is an important and timely topic, which will be part of a series we will continue in January on the pathways to developing identity as a public good, which will include standardization and interoperability in January episode. So basically, the December episode will be on open source, while the January one will be on open standards. Finally, last week, we announced an open registration for ID4Africa 2020, the Marathon of Innovations, which consists of 6 thematic symposiums and an innovation world tour with 42 stops around the world in 3 days. This is a unique virtual event, which we created in response to so many of your requests. Please register today. The link in this registration will be put in the chat. So back to today's livecast. Let me put this episode in context so you can see why we selected to spotlight Tanzania today. ID4Africa held its inaugural annual meeting in Dar es Salaam in 2015. So you can say Tanzania is the birthplace of ID4Africa Movement. At the time, national ID was not the dominant form of identification. Barely 10% of the population had an ID. There were no services linked to it at all. The identity ecosystem was fragmented with a wide range of credentials, including letters of identification from local governments, and the country was embarking on a new voter registration exercise. At the time, all identity schemes had low coverage, no single source of truth existed, and the quality could be questioned. The country had to do a reset of the National Identification Authority, NIDA, a couple of years ago. With a new leadership and a new vision, NIDA, working with its partners within an ecosystem framework, was able to achieve something that we all know is very difficult. As we shall hear today, it was able to arrive at a population register that biometrically covers the majority of the adult population and assigns them a unique identity number, NIN. The country now has a robust digital identity scheme that can be the foundation for public service delivery and the digital economy. NIDA and its partners had done this despite complex nationality laws, significant data collection and vetting requirements, and a challenging demographic and geographic context. While this is still work in progress, it is a major accomplishment that merits to be studied so we can extract lessons learned for the benefit of other African countries. This is why we selected Tanzania for this episode. So how did Tanzania do this? Was it an unwavering political will to enroll the whole population and move into the digital age? Or was it they found a compelling application that created a surge in demand for enrollment? Or was it other factors that contributed to scaling of their operations? What are those factors and how much each had contributed to the success of the NID project? This is exactly what we intend to find out in this episode. So stick around. This promises to be a very interesting session. To do this exploration, I'm thrilled to have with us today an exceptional panel representing several of the major identity stakeholders in the country. I'd like to welcome the panelists. Operator, could you please elevate all the panelists? I'd like to thank their institutions for taking the time to contribute to this session. With us here is, of course, Dr. Arnold Kihaule, DG of NIDA, Edson Guyai from NIDA, Thomas Mongella from the Bank of Tanzania, Linda Riwa from TAMNOA or Vodacom, Josephine Joseph from TASAF, Shaban Abdallah from Zanzibar Civil Status Registration Agency, Philippine Mmari from TASAF, Benedict Ndomba from the eGovernment Agency. Who did I miss? Because the screen has now filled up. I must have missed somebody. Josephine Joseph, I mentioned you. Yes, you're there. Damien Chikira, I haven't mentioned you. There you are. Welcome, Damien. And I think I've got everybody. So a nice group of people, and everybody is here with us. So what we'd like to do is that we'd like to conduct this session successively in several segments. We will start by talking with NIDA, and then we will continually add other partners and subtract partners so that we can have a meaningful discussion. We will have the ability for you to ask questions, and I will pose those questions in 1/3 of the way, half of the way, and towards the end. And also, community voices. If you want to be in the community voices, please raise your hand by pressing the button, and somebody will come and prepare you to get on. Okay, so operator, now, so that we can begin our discussion, I'd like, thank you all, of course, to all the panelists and their institutions for being with us. I'd like to ask Dr. Kihaule and Edson to stay with me, and then we will bring the rest of the panel progressively. Okay. So, Dr. Arnold Kihaule, thank you so much for being with us once again. And Edson, thank you so much for being with us today, which promises to be a very interesting discussion. Let's start by reminding people, and please unmute your phone, your microphone, Dr. Arnold. And let's remind people, our viewers, sort of what's NIDA's mission, who's NIDA and what's its mission?
Okay, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity for us to say what is the NIDA for in terms of its mission. Briefly, what I can say is that starting with a brief historical background is that NIDA is a government agency which was established in 2008 with the mandate to register, issue identity card to eligible Tanzanians and the other citizens who are living in Tanzania legally. And also we are also registering refugees and we who are also in Tanzania, staying in Tanzania legally, and for the purpose of ensuring that we ensure peace, security, and economic growth and prosperity for the country and for the people living in Tanzania. And we are registering people based on the regulations which were passed by the Parliament. We have Registration and Identification Act of 1986, which was revised in 2012. This provided the legal basis for registration and the mandate for NIDA to share data or information with the other relevant stakeholders.
So you're basically mandated to register to citizens, legal residents, and refugees on the Tanzanian territory. There is an echo that we're trying to resolve. Apologize for that. Okay. So
I don't hear you.
Now it's okay.
Hello?
Yes.
I don't hear you.
Now it's okay. I think Edson, your computer may be interfering with Dr. Arnold's computer. You're in the same room, I think. So if you put the speaker off on that, Dr. Arnold, can you hear me?
Hello?
No, there's interference. My recommendation, Edson, maybe we can share the computer. Just shut down one computer and share the other one. Seems that there is interference. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. So while we're figuring out this, could you share with us where are you in your goal of enrolling the population and issuing them a unique ID number? Where are you in that project right now?
Yeah, if you take the Tanzanian population, according to the census which was done in 2012, sorry, Tanzanian population stands at about 27.7 people. Okay, adult population is about 27.7, and right now NIDA has been able to register or to enroll about 22.1 million people. Okay, we are 27.7 million people. We've been able to register 22.1 million people, which is about 80% of the total population, and we are still going on. And we have been also to provide NIN to about 18.5 people. That is about 80% of the people who has already been registered with the NIDA, and we are still going on with the registration of the people who have not yet registered, or they are turning 18 every day.
Now, when you say 22.1 million people have been registered, that includes residents and refugees, or just Tanzanian citizens?
This includes residents and refugees as well.
As well. Okay, so it's a total statistic of what you have. Now, why is the NIN registration lagging behind, the NIN issuance lagging behind the registration? Could you please explain a little bit how your procedure works?
This is because of the procedures involved in the registration process. Because we need to once the people have been registered, maybe in the villages or rural areas or some other areas, these applications are sent to a central place where they are being processed. And there we need very keen in trying to make sure that whoever is getting NIN is eligible to get NIN, who is maybe staying in Tanzania legally, or if a Tanzanian has got all the documents, necessary government document which identifies him as a legal resident, or identifies him as a citizen, or identifies him as a legal refugees. Now this is why you find we're lagging behind. We are making efforts to make sure that all people who have registered and they qualify to be given an NIN or national identification number, they get the numbers.
Excellent. So, how much of the 22.1 million were actually enrollments in the NIDA, and how much of this was harmonizing from the voter register? Was there any value to you from the previous voter register exercise?
Yeah, this voters register exercise was very useful to us in terms of facilitating verification of the information of individuals. In Tanzania, when we are doing registration, we are using a number of documents. Okay, we are using, for example, birth certificates. We are using voters ID. We are using maybe secondary school and primary school certificates. Now, all these data from the National Election Commission has helped us a lot in facilitating the verification of the application of all the people who have registered. And given that in 2015 there are about 22.5 million people who are registered, and now these databases provide us a very useful information in terms of verifying Tanzanians, and in terms of verifying the information which initially those people who registered have provided to NIDA. So
in fact, you did not use their database, you used it to attest and to validate, in fact, as a data point to say, yes, this person exists. Here's another data point that says that they are Tanzanians, etc. And so in a way, you had to enroll using your biometrics. You had to bring in those 22.1 million people, and you captured their biometrics. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So basically, it did not impact your enrollment. It did not make the enrollment immediate, what it did is that made the verification easier for you. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a version of harmonization. In the past, people would talk about taking one database and adopting it to become the database and automatically issuing a NIN for that database. And the experience that we've had in other countries is that the data standards and data quality vary. And as a result, you do not want to necessarily choose harmonization, but you can do what Tanzania is doing, which is use that database as a validation point.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good lesson. First lesson that we've learned. Now let's talk a little bit technical about what's your data model. I mean, do you capture what type of biometrics do you capture, and what type of biometrics do you use for deduplication, and what type of biometrics do you use for authentication?
Maybe this I'm asking Edson also to make
yes,
some.
please.
Yeah, thank you. For Tanzania National ID system, we are using fingerprint or AFIS engine to do the duplications, and also we use the same engine to do the verification. So we have we have engine which is automatic AFIS engine, which enable us to do the biometric enrollment. In our case, we capture 10 fingerprints. 10 fingerprints.
Flat? Do you capture 10 flat fingerprints?
That's 442.
442, okay.
So for verification, we capture, for verification or authentication, we just use one finger for authentication.
Right. And so you only use one finger for authentication, but the deduplication you actually do centrally in your data center, no regional. So all the data comes to the center and you do the deduplication at the center?
Yes, deduplication is centralized. We do it at data center.
Okay. What is your AFIS engine, and how long have you been using it?
We've been using it for more than 10 years now.
More than 10 years. Okay. What about face? Do you see face having a role in your deduplication or even in the authentication?
We are considered to use the iris scan as a complementary identification method, because face is not so much accurate compared to retina or iris scan. So for us, we are considering to add a second biometric, which is iris scan.
Right. So you actually will be using an ABIS, because now if you have another biometric, it's not just an AFIS fingerprint, you have another modality that you're going to use. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have ABIS in Tanzania?
In Tanzania, I think yes. In immigration. Yes.
And so let me summarize. You have fingerprints, but you're considering adding iris deduplication, right? But you do capture face, right? Face comes with the right, because you have to take the photo, you print it, right?
Yes, we are also, as you said, if you opt for ABIS, it comes with or 2 or 3 engine, maybe iris and the face recognition.
And face recognition. Okay. So then have you established protocols for exception handling? Basically, some countries have problems capturing biometrics from people. Fingerprints, for example, maybe 1 to 2% of the population cannot provide fingerprints. Where do you stand with exception handling?
For us, our enrollment module has been equipped or has been given the capability to detect the quality of fingerprint before enrolling the fingerprint in our database. So the issue of quality is controlled during the registration. Okay.
And if somebody cannot give you the necessary quality, what do? They don't have fingerprints. They are manual laborers.
Yeah, there are 2 options. For instance, for those who, as you said, the manual laborers, we just ask them to come for a second time to test if we can capture the fingerprints, because we have just one engine, so we should make sure that we at any means we capture the fingerprints.
Okay, so you ask them to come back, and if after they come back they cannot do it, what do you do?
Yeah, if that happens, that's why we are considering for the second biometric engine. If we have another engine, we will use alternative. But for now, we are checking the age. If that person maybe has got an age of maybe 70 years and above, we can enroll that person without fingerprints.
Okay, I understand. And so now we are talking about enrolling the population starting with the age of 18. You're not touching children or young adults, right? You're looking at 18 and above.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we understand your data model. It's a biometric-based data model. You deduplicate using primarily finger, but you also are adding iris in order to do exception handling. Face comes for the right. I imagine you have ABIS. You can turn it on as well. It will improve the matching accuracy, but also maybe the convenience of using face for authentication, because people can do selfies on their phones. So is that something? We'll come back to that in a second. Anyway, so one other question for you and Dr. Arnold. Your enrollment centers, are they fixed or are you mobile? Do you have, how many do you have? How many have you established within your infrastructure?
In Tanzania, we have established 150 registration offices, and we are about 127 that are online and 123 that are offline. And what we are doing in registration, we usually, despite the fact that we have a district office, when we want to do registration, we usually go to the villages or to streets, depending where. If in town, we are going to streets, we are selecting some centers where we register people, or in villages, also we establish villages where we register people. Despite the fact that we have established offices in each of the districts in Tanzania, mainland and Zanzibar.
It's only 150 offices for NIDA? You were able to register 22 million people with 150 offices?
Fixed office per each district.
Each district?
Yes, but for mass registration, we are using an offline biometric registration kits. For
mass registration, how many kits are you needing to deploy so that we can get an idea to see in 22 million people, how many did you?
Around 5,000 kits.
5,000 kits. Okay, so that's more like it. So you had 5,000 kits. Are you now in the steady state, or are you still out there doing campaigns to register?
Sorry?
Are you in the steady state now, meaning the campaign for mass registration is done? Now it's more like people have to go to the office and register with you, the leftover and also the new ones that are becoming 18.
Yes, we conducted mass registration. We began from 2017 up to 2019. And for now, we are just doing the regular or normal registration, where people come to just visit our office for registration. And in case we find there is some area or village which needs our officer to go and visit them, then we do some arrangement. But for now, we are done with mass registration. Okay,
you're done with mass registration. Good. So let me go back to Dr. Arnold. Dr. Arnold, yes. Let's talk a little bit about digital identity and the role of the ID cards. How does NIDA see digital identity? Do you see digital identity simply as a number, like for example in India, there's a unique number, let's call it the NIN, and then from then on services can be linked to that? Or do you think you need to also issue smart cards? What's your vision for that? If you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, in the case of Tanzania, we need both of them, because depending where people live and depending on the uses of this national identity authentication numbers. Because, for example, in most cases in the villages, people to access services, they will need national ID, the smart card. Okay. Because in most cases the services there, in a number of cases, they are offline. But in case for those who are online, then the use of number is very convenient to those people. That's why in Tanzania, we've been promoting both the use of national identity number and also the use of smart card. Although in terms of when what we learn now, for example, in case of use of the national ID number for mobile registration, it was that because the mobile companies have facilities even to the remote areas, it was easier for them to use the national identification number in addition to the smart card.
Okay. How many smart cards have you managed to issue right now so far, and what's your plan for scaling up the issuance?
So far, we've been able to issue about 6.4 million smart cards. Our plan maybe in the coming 6 months is we can be able to issue smart card for all eligible Tanzanian who is registered and have already got NIN.
Now, who pays for the smart cards? Are the public are required to pay to receive a smart card?
It's free.
It's free. For the first time, it's free. For Tanzania, for Tanzanians, is in the first instance, it's free. Once it's got lost, you want to change some details, information concerning anything concerning your personal details, then you have to pay. But for the legal residents and the refugees, they are supposed to pay. There are different rates for depending on nature why you're in Tanzania. If you're in Tanzania as a researcher or as a missionary or as an investor, there are different rates for that. Or as a student, there are different amounts you need to pay to get registered.
I understand. So this smart card, we understand it's like an 80 kilobyte smart card, capable of handling multi-applications, or what is the spec for that smart card?
Yeah, our smart card is 8K, and also it has capability to accept or to handle multiple applications.
Okay, and today you issue them blank. Inside them, there's only the ID and number, or do you issue them with any other applications?
Today, we from the initial design, it has got some number of application or in technical we call it applets. We have an EID applet to enable authentication, offline verification, and also it allows post-issuance upload of applet. In our case, we have the space for a PKI system. We have also space for a driving license and e-wallet or e-pass systems. Okay.
But they are not yet activated. You can activate them after the issuance.
Yeah. For now, we have just one EID applet.
Right, and I imagine there is no infrastructure for the use of the card. There are no readers yet in banks and in insurance and everywhere. Is there a plan to put those infrastructures in place, or where are you in that?
Banks, for the banks and financial institutions, they have the readers.
They do have readers?
Yeah, they have the readers.
Okay, so they do have readers. They're able to read the card. Are they able to do an authentication of the card by doing match on card?
Yes, this is what is happening because we are for us we propose or we suggest them to use the combo card reader that with the capability to read the card and also to do the fingerprint verification. So they are using the verification on the card to do the fingerprint verification.
Okay, so they're doing the matching on the card itself. Okay, there's a lot we want to continue covering, but I want to switch gears a little bit and sort of try to tease out a lesson that we've learned watching from the outside what you have been doing. I think many would say that requiring SIM registration and linkage with the NIN was a really breakthrough application. It was a collaboration between you and TCRA, the regulatory authority. And it basically, many people said it won't work because the public will say, no, I'm not gonna register. It's difficult in other countries to insist on SIM linkage to the ID. You managed to do this. And so, Dr. Arnold, was there initially resistance from the population? I mean, you gave them a very short timeline. So how was the reaction from the population?
Yeah, from the public, you have a mixed reaction. There are those people who were willingly, after being informed that we needed to do SIM card registration using a national identification number, they were easily coming, and there are those who are a lot of campaign or information or awareness campaign to inform them the relevance of this. And also because this there was a certain deadline, and you know, in Tanzania, a large number of people use mobile phone for different uses, and they for them now, because the requirement of that, once you register, then you will be cut off from communication. Therefore, that was comparing now for those, even those for those who are maybe slow, or they are maybe hesitating to register. Now they were compelled to register, because otherwise their lives will be facing difficulties, because they use mobile phone, for example, making transaction, maybe transferring money, or making payment for goods and services. Therefore, the use of mobile phone for different maybe aspect of economic activities or transaction compelled people now to register their mobile phone using a national identification number.
So now that you look in hindsight, and this has been a success, did you, while you were doing it, at any point have any trepidations or concern that there's going to be a failure of this? I mean, this was a brilliant success, no doubt that you've done it. And so, but it wasn't clear from the beginning. And so, what were you feeling about it? And also, would you recommend it to other African countries?
Yeah, I would recommend it. And another thing, maybe in Tanzania, why it was successful, it was even the national leaders were also promoting this. Where in one way or another, they were encouraging people to go and register for their mobile phones using national. Therefore, that was an advantage. And another thing, we were still working as a team. We had mobile phone companies, we have TCRA, we have NIDA, we have even the police force, where they are involved in trying to facilitate the registration of the mobile phone numbers, and this cross collaboration together with the support from national leaders enabled now Tanzania to succeed, or to reach the success level it has reached so far.
And in fact, I noticed that you've hired influencers on social media. These were public, celebrities. I understand there were like 150 influencers that you hired them, and they went out there telling the public. Can you speak a little bit about this influencer campaign? Because maybe we could recommend it to other African countries.
Okay, when you're registering, you have different age groups, okay? And there are age groups which maybe are well used, for example, to social media, to other media outlets. And you have another group of people who are not used to that. For example, those who are maybe old people, they are not used to those social media, or even if they access it, maybe they are not addicted to that, or they use it's for very limited. Now, in order to capture the bigger part of the population of the youth, because in Tanzania the bigger part of the population is the young people, in order to inform them, then we had to during the process it was invested that it was necessary also to adopt other measures which could promote people to come and register, and one of them was these influencers, and it's been very useful because the large number of people, the youth also has a large part of them have already registered their mobile phone numbers, and even now you find them they are the one also who are flocking to our offices. They want to register, and one of the reasons is because of the use of influencers.
In fact, this is a lesson learned. I mean, this is the first time I've seen national identity authorities and the regulatory authorities using influencers on social media and others. It's a useful campaign to keep in mind if you are trying to bring in, whether it's birth registration or registration for ID, etc. So good lesson learned, Dr. Kihaule. I think we recommend it. We see the value of it. Let me ask you, clearly you created a surge in demand because there was a deadline. Did you have to scale up your offices? Did you have to work 24 hours? How did you meet it?
Now, when we wanted to achieve our goal, what we did, first we established, for example, in the towns and cities, we established a number of centers. apart from the office, the regular office, but we establish a number of centers where a large number of people flocks. For example, if it is near the bus stop where maybe a bus terminal, you find there, usually there are a lot of people there. We establish a center there. And also, we were opening the offices on Sundays, on Fridays, on holidays. We are also, and we are closing the office at 6 p.m. every day. Therefore, this has helped to maybe within a limited of time, we managed to register a large number of people because of those strategies. And even in the rural areas, also what we did is also to open offices, in small offices or send in some centers, and also collaborating with these mobile phone companies to make sure that wherever they are, and they are there, as well TCRA was there to try to monitor the exercise and coordinate the exercise. And this also brought some big results or milestone in regard to registration of all these mobile phone companies. Right.
Excellent. In fact, speaking of the private sector and the mobile operators, here with us actually a representative from the mobile operators, actually Linda Riwa, who is from Vodacom. She's actually sitting in for Henni, who is the chair of TAMNOA, which is the Tanzania Mobile Operators Association. So Linda, welcome. We want to bring you into this discussion because we see in the SIM registration two lessons. One is having a compelling application can drive the population in a positive way to enroll and generate digital identity. Second, you're showing an example of private-public partnership, which is the mobile operators and the authorities like NIDA and TCRA are now working together. So maybe, Linda, you can start by explaining to us what is TAMNOA and when was it founded and what's the mission of TAMNOA? Who are members of it?
So thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So basically, TAMNOA is the Tanzania Mobile Network Operators Association. And our main function really is to address common interest of the industry, common matters, but then at the same time support various government initiatives. So we work jointly with the government to address a number of issues. And we have 7 mobile operators that are part of TAMNOA, that being Vodacom Tanzania, Airtel, Tigo, Zantel, TTCL, and Smile. So those are the members of TAMNOA.
Okay, now thank you for that. I mean, a naive person looking at this exercise from the outside, you look at the regulator, the government, and you look at the private sector, and the private sector now got a compliance requirement from the government. How did the mobile network operators initially react to this requirement of SIM registration, and how did it impact your operations?
So initially, the mobile operators were really concerned, especially thinking on how disruptive this entire process would be to the business overall. And the reasons we were really concerned is because prior to embarking into biometric registration, we had a pilot back in 2018. And the pilot that we had in about 5 regions was very unsuccessful, mainly because most of the citizens didn't have national identity cards. So we were really concerned from that point of view. And prior to that as well, just a year before this regulation, we were given guidance in terms of 5 IDs that were acceptable for mobile registration. So previously, all of our customer base had various number of IDs, including students' IDs, identification, or rather letters of introduction from their offices and whatnot. So we had also embarked into a process whereby we cleaned our entire customer base to make sure that they were compliant with the 5 IDs that were acceptable. So just as we were finishing that exercise, that was very costful and very time-consuming and cumbersome, this regulation came into play. So we were really, really concerned from that end. But then we were also thinking of it from not only from a disruption from a revenue perspective, but from a cost perspective, because we were looking at customers that we've used 20 years to register, then we now have a deadline of, let's say, a year. So it sort of looked impossible.
Exactly.
So not that it couldn't be done, but I think the deadline itself also added a lot of pressure into that process. But I think not complying into the regulation was not an option. So as TAMNOA, we decided to take this as a joint matter and address most of our concerns with the regulator, which we got very good cooperation from both the regulator and NIDA, and that's how we embarked into that process.
Now, to the bottom line, if we look at it in the short term, did it result in loss of revenue and hence an investment on the part of the private sector in the success of the National Identity Program?
Short term, definitely yes. If I look to date, as an industry, we've barred close to 10 million customers, which is a lot, and over and above the revenue loss that we've gotten from barring this customer, the exercise was very costly from the sense that we had to deploy tools in terms of biometric registration devices. As a consortium with TAMNOA, we had to acquire devices jointly, over 25,000 devices. Over and above that, each operator invested massively on additional devices. So taking note that most of our customers here have multiple SIM cards. So it was not one of those exercises that you can just embark on alone. So it was very critical for us to work as an industry and deploy joint devices that are used to date to be able to do that exercise. But over and above that, all these agents that we were deploying and we were giving them devices, they couldn't do this exercise for free. So we also had to incur additional cost for every re-registration that happened. So we are talking about close to 49 million customers that we had to pay roughly $50 for each re-registration. That was massive. So short term, I would say it was very straining in terms of revenues and cost-wise for the industry.
Now, just to clarify about these devices, were you using these devices to authenticate them, or are you using them to contribute to the enrollment? If they came to you without a NIN, what are you using these biometric devices for?
So these biometric devices, we are giving them to our agents to register customers that already have national ID numbers, NIN. So when the customer comes at a touch point, they would give us their NIN, and then they would put their fingerprint for verification, which we verify with NIDA. So previously, most of the registration devices really didn't have fingerprint capability. So this is what we had to deploy to be able to register customers.
I understand. Now, this was an investment, this was a disruption, but clearly looking at the long term, do you see value in having now NIN universally available? So now your customers come to you with a NIN. Do you see also new products that the mobile network operators can now offer more securely? What's the upside for you in it?
Definitely, yes. So previously with all the IDs that we were accepting, it opened a lot of room on fraud, especially on mobile financial services. So we were struggling a bit on that front, and we've been working jointly with the regulator to try and address that. But secondly, the most important thing is we were really unable to really know who our customers were. In terms of the information that we had was very mixed up, and we didn't have one clear definition of how we would really segment and understand our customers. So with this information now, it really opens up a lot of room in terms of really being able to deploy right products to the right customers with all the rich biometric information that we have now. And we've started doing that at the moment, and I believe long term, it's going to benefit us greatly.
Will you be offering mobile money more securely now? Will you be offering more services, linking maybe the e-wallet to a bank account? Know your customer becomes more banking exercise, not just knowing your customer in a mobile environment?
Definitely. So most of those services are already available. So with this information, we are able to do that more securely in terms of understanding our customer. But I think it would probably lead us into a place whereby we could have one database in terms of really understanding the credit healthiness of our customers, because now we really didn't understand these customers who take loans from our mobile money, from another banks, from a bank, from another mobile operator. So I think it gives a lot of room in terms of having joint databases that we can be verifying a lot of this information from a mobile money perspective.
Excellent. So it is a positive outcome. It was painful. You did it. You worked together. Ecosystem. You were a partner in this. Now, if you are to tell TCRA and NIDA about things that the mobile network operators would appreciate going forward in order to continue this collaboration and to make sure that it's sustainable, what would those messages be?
So I think for us, the worry is, so to date, we still have a base that is not biometrically registered. The good thing is we've been having joint initiatives with NIDA on ground to support a quicker registration, which has been very successful. So we really hope that collaboration will be ongoing. And I think for us, given that Tanzania is quite a young population, some of our concerns are really on how fast the rolling out of the people that will be reaching the age of 18 across the country, how fast they're going to access the national ID so that we are able to register that. But I believe given prior engagements or given prior experience, that should not be much of concern going forward. But I think the big one for us is as all the registrations now are going through NIDA, there is a cost to that. So for every hit that we query NIDA for any information, we have to pay a certain amount. And with that, then it means this is an ongoing cost for the mobile operators forever. So I think that is an area maybe NIDA and TCRA can look into, because it's quite training to the operators given the investment that we've done so far. But other than that, I think the success of where we are now is mainly a story of collaboration with NIDA and TCRA.
And it's a well-noted story, because I think all Africa should listen to this story, how private and public can work together to produce something that's amazing. A lot of people bet against you, and we believed in you, and we see the results. Stay with us, Linda, and stay with us, Dr. Kihaule and Edson. I see some people from the community who would like to come in and ask some question or give a perspective. So let's take one very quickly and see where we are. If it's relevant to Linda, we'll keep you. Otherwise, we'll continue. Operator, please elevate one of the hands that have been raised. And when you come, please identify yourself from where you are coming. So there's a lag between that and getting somebody on. So yes, please identify yourself. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me in this call. Really appreciate this conversation and very timely, despite the COVID impact. My name is Minu Limbu. I am the Innovation Manager in UNICEF in Nigeria. I work very close to here with the Government Population Fund Identity Management Authority and also with the World Bank, really with the idea of focusing on identity for children at birth and as opposed to 18 years old. We have a big office in Nigeria, in Tanzania, and I'm sure Dr. Arnold and Mr. Edson, you're working with them closely anyways. So my question really is, and again, thank you for your very elaborate presentation. And based on that, my question was, as you are focusing on the 18 years or above sort of registration and issuance of ID, what were your thoughts on also providing an identity, a unique NIN number for a child when he or she is born? The reason behind I'm asking you this is we're having the same debate here in Nigeria as you speak, one of the biggest projects of World Bank on identity management. And then there's a big debate about how do we have this balance of 18 years above and giving an identity a child. Why this is important for UNICEF, especially for the children, is if you don't give them a unique ID at birth, before he or she turns 5 years old, he misses out on a lot of social services like immunization, like ECD centers, and so on and so forth. So what are your suggestions for the country like ours, and how could we take this forward? And again, thank you so much for having me here. Over.
So NIDA does not enroll children at this moment. We are going to talk with RITA when they come in with birth registration, and then we'll talk about the interaction between you and RITA. But if you want to say something now, you could do that. The microphone is muted.
Okay. Hello. We are aware of the concern which is one of the members of WASCI, and we are, as I said before, we are aware of the concern which has been raised, and we are working with it, and we have started some initiative to work together with RITA to find out the best way we can integrate and have a unique number. And another thing, interesting thing, is that during the registration with NIDA, we are using birth certificates which are being issued by RITA. Therefore, this should be easier to integrate, or should be easier to corroborate and to establish maybe for each individual or each child who is being born to be able to get a national identification number in the future.
Right. Okay. So, sorry, Robbie. We are coming back to the. We'll come back to that issue. So, Linda, before I let you go, can you share with our viewers a little bit of statistics about phone penetration in Tanzania and smartphone penetration? Unmute, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. So we have around 49 million subscribers, most of which I would say is multiple SIMing. So it's quite tricky to understand the unique SIMers. So this is about 82% penetration of the population. But in terms of smartphone penetration, we are sitting at roughly about 30%. 30%. Okay. So thank you so much, Linda. We will bring you back at the end for closing words of wisdom, but for now, we'll keep the NIDA representatives. I want to continue quickly this discussion on the challenges of mass enrollment. Dr. Arnold and Edson, one of the things that struck me in your enrollment is the number of fields that you're capturing, and the vetting process is so rich. Most of the other programs that I have looked at for mass enrollment, very quick enrollment, they don't capture 74 fields. And also the vetting is done with very less standards of know your customer. Did you do 74 fields plus rigorous vetting for the 22.1 million, or did you lower your standards?
What we did, we were keen to make sure that all these information which are required are obtained, and we used in verifying identity of the individuals. One of the issues in Tanzania is that you find quite a big part of the population have no, for example, especially those who are old, maybe will be around 30s or above. They don't have, maybe a number of them don't have maybe birth certificate, but they might be having primary and secondary school certificates. Now, in order to get quality data, in order to be sure about the people who are registering, it was necessary to make sure that we make a rigorous check on the various field of information which you required. And another thing to take note is that in Tanzania, it's bordering about 8 countries, and in some places you can find some people can easily come to Tanzania and maybe settle here. Now we needed to make sure that we are registering people who are legally living in Tanzania as Tanzanians or legal residents or refugees. Therefore, that's why we had to make sure that we are trying to make it sure that all the fields of information which were shown in the form are checked and verified, so that at the end we have a quality database of the people whom you can easily identify and be sure of their identity.
Yeah, actually, I see that you needed legal status at the same time you're actually capturing their identity. So that's countercurrent. I mean, so just so that we highlight that this was even a more difficult exercise than normal. For example, in India, they just enroll the identity and then later on they let somebody else decide the legal status. For you, you have to decide the legal status at the same time you're enrolling them. Is that correct?
Atick, for India, because that number is not associated with the nationalities or the citizenship status. But for in the case of for our national ID is associated with the citizenship status. So we have to collect a lot of fields in order to determine the citizenship and also determine the address. And the second thing, we have built national ID without a foundation, because it was supposed to have CVRS database and the population database. So we have to, it was supposed to build national ID on top of those databases. But unfortunately in Tanzania, we started the registration of national ID without a major coverage in population register and also in the CVRS database. That's why we are required to collect that number of fields. I think in the future we can consider, but for now we are forced to recapture those 74 fields.
Do you think the nationality laws in Tanzania are too complex for your operations? And do you think there is a risk that you could exclude people who cannot prove their legal status? I mean, how do you deal with people who are falling in between the cracks?
I don't think if it's a problem, these nationality laws, and in cases there is maybe some issues. We have the immigration department, because when we are doing registration, we are closely working with the other government institutions. Okay, one of them is the immigration department. Therefore, and they have the mandate, have the knowledge about the nationality of all individuals. Therefore, taking into account that, now it makes us maybe much easier for us, because what we are doing is like, yes, we are collecting information, but the other mandate, for example, is being handled by other government department who assist us in registering these people. Therefore, that's why in terms of issues of nationality, for us, it's not a hassle, because already there's somebody who is dealing with that and giving us information.
Okay. Actually, we've got other questions to ask NIDA, but I want to start bringing in some of your partners, and we'll come back to some of those questions. And the first partner that I want to bring in is the Bank of Tanzania, actually, the integration between foundational and functional. So let's welcome the representative of the Bank of Tanzania, please, to the panel. Thomas Mongella. Thomas, thank you so much for being with us. It's been an interesting discussion so far. We understand where NIDA stands. Now, what are the identification challenges in the financial and banking sector in Tanzania that you see?
Yeah, once again, thank you, Dr. Atick, for having me. And it's an opportunity for us to learn a lot from our partners in the global community. For Tanzania, there are a couple of issues I don't know, I should call them problems or challenges, but one of them is the presence of, many acceptable IDs. For example, for one to open an account, a NIDA ID is acceptable, passport is acceptable, driving license, voter registration, and in some cases, even introduction letters from the local government authorities. So that brings challenges because we would wish to have one ID in the system so that whenever, for example, we match, say, borrowers in the credit reference systems, we have one ID, we're able to link all of them and determine the credit worthiness. So that is one of the challenges. The other challenge is the verification process, particularly when you don't use NIDA ID, which can be verified through the database connecting through TCRA, through NIDA authority. Sometimes you rely on the, introduction and calling the local government authorities, but that is also prone to its risk in terms of being able to be defrauded. Again, linked to the multiple ID is the possibility that one can open, say, an account in one institution or in different institutions using different names, and that brings issues in terms of fraud and risk controls in the banking sector.
Are you thinking that the central bank will issue a regulation saying no NIN, no bank, like Nigeria did? Like now you did SIM registration, no NIN, no SIM card. Why can't the central bank solve the problem of multiplicity of IDs and complexity of identification by issuing a regulation saying you need a NIN in order to have a bank account? Is that something you're discussing?
In terms of roadmap, I think that is where we are going. But at the moment, the challenge is when banks do open accounts, they do follow the Anti-Money Laundering Act.
Right.
And within the Act, it has provided a number of acceptable IDs. And like I said, one can use NIDA ID or driving license, passport, and so on and so on. So until when we reach such a time when we have made amendments to the laws, to the applicable laws, forcing people to use one ID, then that is where we will be going. Thank you.
So it's a roadmap issue. Now, let me ask you, what about payments? Is government to people payment being digitized in Tanzania? Are you having a project to make sure that everybody can be paid electronically, or where are you on that?
At the moment, we are developing a platform, we call it Tanzania Instant Payment System, which will provide interoperability facilities for digital service providers, banks, and mobile network operators. So we have started the project in October this year, and the roadmap we expect by July, we will have it up and running. We have started with simple two use cases, the P2P and P2Business simple. That is phase one. When we go to phase two, then we'll have business to people and the government to people. So in the roadmap, yes, it is there, but that is in the second stage of the project.
So it's fair to say, given now that you have a digital identity in the country, a lot of new products and new services, the central bank can rely on this. You are a stakeholder, you are a consumer, and you have motivation to motivate people. Do you see yourself as an integral member of this ecosystem?
Yes, really. For example, now our biggest role in the ecosystem is to keep the system safe. And one way to do that is to have people registered using unique IDs, biometric ID. And for us, the NIDA ID is one of the strongest IDs that we have around. So as NIDA, accomplish the task, then our systems become safer. And if you speak to banks, for example, they do prefer NIDA ID, compared to the other forms of ID, because as NIDA presented, they can be easily verified and authenticated.
Now, that's great. So basically, maybe in the roadmap, NIDA ID becomes the ID for banking. Now, does the central bank have a financial inclusion strategy to make sure that the poor and the vulnerable have access to financial services, or does this falls under some other organization?
Yes, we have as a country,
Right.
we have the National Financial Inclusion Framework. Previously, we had the first one, I would like to call it NFIF1, which covered the period from 2014 to 2016. Mainly that focused on the access part of financial inclusion. But now we have the second financial inclusion framework covering period from 2018 to 2022. In addition to access issues, it is also focusing on usage issues. And there is a national council which comprises different many stakeholders. For example, NIDA is there, TCRA is there, the Bank of Tanzania, and the rest, and each has several tasks and goals to achieve. One of them is financial inclusion, which is the greatest milestone for us all.
Do you have any statistics to talk about where the percentage of adults that have bank accounts?
According to the fiscal survey that we did in 2017, a couple of key statistics would include, in terms of access, it was at 86%, but we are looking to grow it up to 92% by the end of the strategy. In terms of usage, it was around 60%, and we are focusing to take it to above 75%. People using informal financial service was around 6.7%. We are looking to grow that again. 48.6% did not have or use bank service, but use other forms of services, for example, mobile money.
Okay.
That number is growing, and thanks to the mobile money players like Vodacom and the rest from the TAMNOA, which are assisting us to pull the numbers up. Thank you.
Excellent. I mean, I think central banks are key to the success of the ecosystem and sustainability in the long run. Mobile is one, central banks is another. So it's good to see that you have roadmaps to anchor your services and anchor new products on the digital ID, but also create a national inclusion, financial inclusion strategy. So stay with us. I want to bring in another partner of NIDA, which is the eGovernment agency. And I think Benedict Ndomba, could you please elevate Benedict to the platform? Benedict, thank you for being with us. Could you start by introduce your organization, because the scope of eGovernment from one country to another may be different. Explain to us, please, what's the mandate of eGovernment agency?
Yeah, thank you for having me in this good forum. The eGovernment authority is responsible for overseeing and promoting appropriate use of ICT in the government, and it covers all public institutions. And also it is responsible to enforce policies, laws, regulations, and guidelines of eGovernment for all public institutions.
Okay, now then that's in fact is the standard definition of what an authority in eGovernment. How's your roadmap rely on the population adopting a digital identity platform? How do you see digital identity in your mission, and what's your vision for it as you collaborate in the ecosystem?
Yeah, actually, in order for the eGovernment to be effective or e-services to be delivered to the general public, the primary driver is the national identity. Once you have a clear and thorough population identity, then the e-services can easily be delivered and can easily be managed and scaled up. So we work very closely with the NIDA to make sure their output will always drive us into our success. And so far, our cooperation with NIDA is more on our technical part and also provision of a shared infrastructure which the government has and we are managing to make sure various institutions which want to access NIDA database, they should be able to access securely through the government network. And so far, the government network is covering about 42% of all government institutions. So that is one secure government network that will allow secure transfer of information between NIDA and various other government institutions.
Now, basically, is there a platform for a single sign-on, for example, where the public can go to this portal, do a single sign-on, and be able to go to the tax authority, be able to go education, go to whatever other services that are available? Is there a concept where you use your digital identity to log in?
This is in the making, and as I said earlier, the main reference should be the national ID. And in the past, the national ID wasn't that much. The coverage was quite low, contrary to what we are now, or where we are now, where the coverage is quite significant. So as we move forward, having that in place, having the national ID in place, so that means that the population identity is clear, and having the PKI, which is under development by the TCRA, then the single sign-in could be very easy adopted. But so far we don't have, but the plan is in place. It should be coming in recent years.
And you said there will be a digital signature also. You will be offering digital signature so that businesses can leverage more secure signing capabilities. Is that correct?
We are part of effort which is being done by TCRA at the moment. They are developing the PKI that will cover the whole population of Tanzania. Right now, there is a PKI solution which covers just few sectors. I think like BOT, I think they have some, and for us here, we have some, for some services, internal services. But the whole population of Tanzania, PKI solution is being worked on by the TCRA so that it can cover the entire population.
The entire population. Okay, one last thing I want to understand. Now, when in your roadmap, do you see the NIN playing the role for giving you the identifier, or do you still need them to have the smart card and then a reader attached to it? And if it's only the NIN, how do you authenticate?
I think the name is the main reference. The main reference. Now, whether the card will have the capacity to support all those use cases, or there's a complementary card or complementary mechanism to support, that is something else. But at the moment, we need first to have the NIN card, the NIN card for the whole population, and then the use cases could differ from one another. And but at the moment, the easiest way is to have the NIDA card, for those who have the NIDA card, to be enabled with other use cases. Like in our case, as a government, we are trying to increase as much use cases for NIDA ID as possible.
Okay, so you can motivate people to see the value in having a digital ID and getting their NIN. Before I bring in some of the community voices, we have a lot accumulating. I wanted to ask, all of you are concerned with this, primarily Dr. Arnold Kihaule, the success of the e-services that Benedict was talking about would require some mechanism where you are giving the relying party the ability to authenticate. So we type in the name, and they're going to be authenticating by going to your servers. What services, identity services, does NIDA have today? Fingerprint, PIN, what services are you offering for authentication so that the other agencies and within the eGovernment framework can rely on your services? Either Edson or Dr. Arnold.
Maybe I will answer that question.
Yeah, at the moment we have two ways of online verification. The first one is the fingerprint authentication, where the customer provides national ID number plus fingerprint, and then this information is sent to NIDA for authentication. And the second thing, or second method, which we are having at the moment is we are quite random security question authentication. We provide NIN, and then you answer security question for you to be authenticated. We have not yet implemented the PIN or OTP. This is in progress. I think because the national ID system or the platform which we are using to authenticate is built by internal capacity. It's NIDA and the government stakeholders who built the national ID authentication system, which we call the common interface gateway. So we are looking on to do the enhancement as we get the requirement. But at the moment, we have just two methods of authentication, and we are using open API or open standard to enable or to allow all technologies to be able to be integrated. So we are using open standard to allow the integration.
But they have to sign an MOU, I assume, with you.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
It's
okay.
a key requirement.
You vet them.
Yes, because you are getting the information. So one of the key requirements is to send MOU to protect personal data.
Quickly. So, and you charge for that service? You intend to charge for the authentication service?
Initially, it was a pilot that from July this year, we are charging.
Okay. Okay. We're not going to get into the financial model, but that's something that is a subject for another topic. Okay. I want to continue because I want to keep the flow running. Another partner of NIDA is the immigration. And then I would like to sort of bring the immigration on, but at the same time, prepare to bring in one of the community voices on the screen. While you're doing this, I can start the discussion with the immigration. Damien, welcome. I don't see Damien. Please bring in the immigration, and we'll also bring in on the screen one of the community voices so we don't waste time. Okay, Damien. I don't see Damien with us. Damien, thank you so much. Welcome, welcome. Damien, you are a partner in this ecosystem with a special role. Not only are you a consumer, but you're also a provider because you participate in the vetting process. What is the nature of the relationship and the role that immigration plays in contributing to the ecosystem? What does immigration do for NIDA?
Thank you for the chance and the moment. The immigration always are concerned with the NIDA because in the process of vetting, the immigrations are supposed to be there. And we have a vicious, it is working like a vicious circle because the immigrations have to check the status of citizenship of those who are applying for national ID. And then after satisfying with all the documents which are supposed to be checked, to be verified by the immigration, then the documents are to be taken to the officers concerned, NIDA officers, and then the issuance of card or printing of card enrollment and issuing of card, then it can be issued.
So basically, you are brought in when there are cases, maybe near the border regions or cases where there's ambiguity in the national legal status, and your investigators will make the final determination for NIDA as to the legal status.
Yeah, even the first time when a person applies, the immigration are consulted, and we are working as a team.
Okay, so across all applications, or is it just cases where NIDA cannot resolve because there's no birth certificate, etc.?
No, in all cases of applying for national ID.
In all cases for applying national ID. Okay, so that's a major thing. What do you think of the nationality laws of Tanzania? I'm not asking a political question, I'm asking an operational question. Do you think there is room to simplify?
To simplify the law?
To simplify the law, because the Tanzanian nationality laws, not any different than other African countries, they become complex for immigration to decide, is this person, you know, what the descent, father, mother, land, etc. So what's your view about the current immigration laws, and is there any appetite to try to lobby for simplifying?
Yeah, because Tanzania, we are surrounded by, we have other countries which are surrounding us. So there is influx of many who are coming to Tanzanian country. And some have resided here in Tanzania for long. So there is hello? Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Damien.
Okay. So for those who have been here in Tanzania for long, there is a system which is going on now to give them a permanent card or citizenship.
This is naturalization? This is your naturalization process, or no?
This is not a naturalization. Naturalization process, though we have given naturalization to other people, like Burundians, we naturalized the 151 plus. Yeah, and the others also, one by one of families are naturalized when it meets the requirements which are supposed to be met.
So you're now trying to accommodate people who have been there for a long time in terms of being residents, but they are not citizens.
Yes.
Okay.
It is on the process now.
It's in the process. Now, switching gears a little bit, you do also issue passports, right? It's immigration that issues passports.
Yes, we do issue.
So now you're a consumer. For the passport issuance, do you require a NIN to be available before you issue a passport or no?
Yes, and that one is mandatory.
Mandatory, okay. So now you consume the NIN, you issue a passport. In principle, is your service link between NIDA and immigration an automated one? Because somebody comes in, all you need is just check with NIDA if this person's record exists. You don't need to enroll their fingerprints again. You don't need to do anything. You can recover that from NIDA. Is that in the roadmap?
For the time being, we are enrolling and we are taking enrollment for the time being. But when a person brings national ID number, then the system, because we have an integration with NIDA, we can check that one.
So you can check it automatically. So it simplifies the vetting process. Now, another role immigration plays, I mean, you are part of the East African community, and there's a free movement initiative of people. Are Tanzanians able to travel and cross borders within the community using their NIDA card?
It has not applied in Tanzania yet.
It hasn't yet applied in Tanzania. And in reverse, will you be able to accept the ID cards from neighbors entering your country, or not yet? And if not yet, when do you think you will accept that?
Because the authority have not yet accepted that.
Okay.
Maybe at the future, if we can be accepted, but for now, it is not used.
Okay, so the political will is there, but the implementation hasn't yet happened, because we saw in the media that the leaders of these countries would like to see this happening.
I think it is on the process of discussion.
It's in the process of discussion. Okay, that's something to look for, because I think there are other mechanisms in which immigration could facilitate, which is near the border areas. Maybe you don't need a card, you don't need a passport. You could do fingerprints or iris or face to cross through these automated gates, which we've seen some pilots between Uganda and Rwanda. So are you exploring automated gates, biometric gate solutions for border control?
Yeah, we have Tukula, we have Igesi and Rusumo.
Okay.
Tanzania.
So immigration is a very, very big player in this. You're a contributor, you vet, You're also a consumer for the passports. You're a consumer for the free movement of people, for the gates, etc. So I think we would consider you as a very, very strong partner in this regard. I want to bring in some voices from the community to see before we continue with the Zanzibar story. So please elevate somebody from. Hello, Professor Henni. Could you please introduce yourself? Vous pouvez parler en français et moi je ferai la traduction pour vous.
Bonjour. Je vous remercie je remercie la Tanzanie. Je félicite la Tanzanie pour le travail qui est fait, qui est très intéressant.
I congratulate Tanzania for the work that they've done.
Pour l'identification.
For identification.
Moi, ce que je dirais, c'est que pour le numéro d'identification nationale, là, ils ont utilisé l'acte de naissance. Est-ce qu'ils ont enregistré tout l'état civil?
Okay. The question is, you require acte de naissance? You require a birth certificate in order to issue a NIN? And have you registered all of the civil register, digitized all the civil register? I think, Professor Henni, je pense que la réponse est non. On va parler avec RITA sur ce point-là. Le taux d'enregistrement est faible en ce moment, mais le numéro identifiant unique, and I'll ask Dr. Arnold, the number, the unique ID number is made of 20 digits.
Yes.
Bench sheet. And it codes for birth date, it codes for location registration, plus a serial number, plus a checksum. Is that correct, Dr. Arnold?
Yes.
Là, ils vont avoir là, le problème, c'est qu'on va avoir des duplications, des numéros qui sont les mêmes. On va avoir plusieurs numéros qui sont les mêmes, et ça pose des problèmes. Maintenant, Monsieur le Professeur, Président, ce que je voulais aussi parler, c'est de parler des cartes d'identité qui sont données aux gens qui ont plus de 12 ans. Le problème, c'est un problème technique. Le problème, c'est que la biométrie, les empreintes ne prennent pas les enfants moins de 12 ans.
Je vais traduire. Professor Henni is talking about the identity card for people who are less than 18 and over 12. And he's saying that the biometrics of fingerprints are not really effective. But actually, Tanzania, je pense, n'utilise pas, il n'y a pas de carte d'identité au-dessous de 18 ans. C'est uniquement 18 ans. As I understand,
12 ans.
18 ans et plus. Dr. Arnold, you issue a NIDA card starting at 18 and above.
Yes, we are issuing cards for those who are 18 and above.
Okay. Now, the other question that Professor Henni raised: how do you ensure that there is no two people who end up with the same national ID number? The national ID number is coming from the biometric deduplication. At some point, you can start issuing national ID numbers for children, but you will not issue national ID numbers from the civil registration to adults. Is that a correct characterization?
Yes, you can use number for children right now, but it's not the same as the one for the national registration, because there are two different authorities who are dealing with that.
Okay. So, Professor Henni, il n'y a pas de problème parce que les adultes sont traités sous un autre régime et les enfants, il faut arriver à un certain point où les enfants, au moment où ils deviennent adultes, ils vont enregistrer leur empreinte digitale, ils vont être dédupliqués et ils ont la possibilité d'avoir un NIN à ce moment-là. OK?
Très bien, merci.
OK, merci, professeur. OK, one more quick voice of the community before we continue with the other agencies with this interesting story. So please elevate one more voice of the community.
Hello. My name is Kunwan Tangalmoti.
Please bring the video on so we can see you. Not sure. Are you able to?
Yeah, my camera is not working properly.
Okay, so no problem. So please speak slowly then, so we can understand what you're asking.
Right. Okay. The question is on during registration on face capturing. Did you encounter problems that relates to, say, religious issues or cultural issues when capturing, say, faces of citizens in Tanzania? That's my question.
Did you? I mean, they use fingerprints as the biometric identification, but they also take the photo in order to print on a card. What problem are you talking about?
Like there are other religions that may not allow to uncover the face of, yes,
cultural. Okay.
Yes, cultural issues.
Okay. Dr. Arnold, are there any cultural or religious concerns regarding the capture of face for the enrollment? Actually, Edson, we don't hear you.
Yes, I'm saying for photograph or for picture, we are using ICAO standard for taking photos. So even those who cover their face because of their religions, there is some standard to follow. So we use the ICAO standard.
You use the ICAO standard, and so you require head covering to be removed when you take. Okay. So yes, so there may be religious or cultural reasons, but this is a requirement of the government, and you use ICAO standards to remove any covering. Okay, so that's a good way of dealing with it. Okay, so I want to give you a break for those people on the screen. Just stand by. We'll bring you back for final wisdoms at the end. I want to switch in gears and bring in Zanzibar. I want to bring in organizations that have their own ID systems, like Zanzibar, RITA, and TASAF. So we can start with Zanzibar. And so my first question, welcome, Shaban, Abdallah. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. Can you introduce our viewers to your agency, the Zanzibar Civil Status Registration Agency or Authority? When was it founded, and what it replaced other institutions? Because a few years ago, we used to hear other names. So could you please introduce yourself and your institution?
Thank you, Dr. Atick, and for having me in this discussion. ZCSRA stands for Zanzibar Civil Status Registration Agency, and the agency has been established just recently. I mean, the year 2018 under the Zanzibar laws, and it was Act number 3 of 2018. And before establishment of these agencies, there were 2 agencies. The first was dealing with the civil registration, that is the Office of Registrar of Birth and Death. And also there is another office which deals with the IDs, that is Zanzibar Identity Card Registration Office. So they are merging these 2 agencies or these 2 offices to form this ZCSRA. And actually the target or the aim is to make sure that we are starting to register the child during its birth and to have a unique ID number. Although we have not yet started this process, because right now we have concentrating on strengthening the ID process. Actually, I mean the identification in the Department of Identification. And later on we'll come also to strengthen the issue of civil registration. So after merging these 2 offices, that's why we have this ZCSRA. And the mandate of this office or these agencies is look the same with NIDA, but the difference is that apart from the registering the residents, I mean the residence identification, we are also registering 4 events. I mean civil registration. I mean birth, death, marriage, divorce, and also the ID. So we're registering these 5 events, and they are named in our laws, these 5 events. That is our mandate, our duty to register this. But also, apart from registration of this, we issue the documents from this registration. I mean, we issue birth certificate, We issue, I mean, death certificate, marriage certificate, and divorce certificate, and also ID card. That's our mandate. And also, we are the custodian. We are custodian of all records of this. If anybody want maybe to verify his records, so we come to our office and we have to verify those things. And yeah, that's our mandate, and that's our
so you're basically a unified civil registration and national identity authority under one roof, civil status, and you issue a Zanzibar ID.
Yes.
That's I assume is a smart ID card. Is that correct?
Exactly, a smart card. Yeah, just
smart
recently.
What is the coverage of the population under civil registration in Zanzibar, and what's the coverage under the national ID percentage?
Well, for civil registration, unfortunately, there is no any study which has been made just recently, but the known or the well-known study, it has been done in 1996, and it also was reported in 2010 under SADC report, and it has been said that nearly 90% of the children born have been registered, and 50% of the day. But when we come to the point of residence ID or the residence, we have managed, because the population is 800,000 right now. Right. And right now we've managed to register 90% of the person who turned age of 18 years. Yeah, so I've managed to register this 80%. And our target or our aim until the end of this year to manage or to finalize the 100%, because it is just 800,000 people.
Okay, how do you cooperate with NIDA? I mean, you are an autonomous region, you have your own laws, but ultimately you are part of Tanzania, and identity should facilitate seamless interaction with the mainland, as well as where people are in Zanzibar and vice versa. What is your vision for cooperating with NIDA and for that integration and harmonization?
Yeah, thanks, good question, and I expected that. Yeah, actually, as you said that we are autonomous, we have our government, and also we have other institutions also, and also the mainland, they have such institution, but NIDA is a mainland, I mean, the union, because we have NIDA also, we have NIDA, and also NIDA, they have their office there, but we are, I mean, our duty or our mandate is to register all Zanzibaris and non-Zanzibari who are residing in Zanzibar. But also we have the ID cards of NIDA, because we also have to register with NIDA. But our aim or our mandate is only to register Zanzibar. So when you come to your point of cooperation, we are cooperating well, because we know this is the country, the Tanzania, the whole country, the one country, United Republic of Tanzania. And ZCSRA, we have the advisory board. Within our advisory board, one among the members of the board is Dr. Kihaule. The director of NIDA is a member of our board, but also because we are in the ministry of the ministry related with local government and regional administration, also our principal secretary is the member of the steering committee of NIDA. So under that situation, I can say that in this management level, we have such a cooperation. And actually, if we have anything we have to do, for instance, the issue of registration of alien, I mean, non-Zanzibari, we have to cooperate with NIDA. Yeah, and we have started to discuss this issue, how it's going to be performed. So I think Mr. Kihaule, he knows well, because we already started to discuss this issue, and we expected to start it very soon. Maybe next year we'll start to do this process. Yeah.
Now, do you share data with NIDA and vice versa? Are you able to access their database and vice versa?
Yeah, right now, not yet. But well, the most important thing to say that our database is able to be shared by any institution. So I think in the future, we'll do that as soon as possible. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. So, and isn't it going to be confusing if the general public will have two digital identities, the NIN, and I assume you have a unique ID number that you issue to your people? How is the mainland banks, for example, what can they say? They can say, give me either one or give me one? how do you harmonize from an end user point of view?
Repeat once again, please.
Yes. So do you have a unique ID number that you issue associated with your enrollment, Zanzibar enrollment?
Okay.
You have like the NIN, right? You have the analog of the NIN, the national identity number, and there must be a Zanzibar identity number. Is that correct or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So now in Zanzibar, I guess I can provide a NIN, or I can provide the Zanzibar ID number, and you have interoperability between these two numbers, or you have to have the Zanzibar ID number.
I mean, if you are a Zanzibari or if you are from mainland?
If you are from Zanzibari, you must have the Zanzibar ID number. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And if I'm from mainland, but I want to open up a bank account in Zanzibar or open up a business in Zanzibar, I can still use the NIN? You accept the NIN?
You know, it depends. These two things sometimes for Zanzibari, because as I said earlier, for Zanzibari, we have two IDs. We have Zan ID and also we have NIDA, NIN, National Identification Number. So right now, the situation right now, the most used one is for NIDA. For instance, when you want to register your SIM card, you're registering with NIDA, and you're not registering with an ID. But as I said earlier, because our database right now is able to be shared, so we are in the process to make sure that also this ZAN ID, it may be used maybe for the registration of the SIM card, or maybe if you want to open, but also even here in Zanzibar for other bank, they may use or they can use the ZAN ID instead of NIDA.
They can use ZAN ID, okay.
They can use ZAN ID, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I think we're going to see harmonization over time. It's only a natural process to do that. Okay, exactly. I want to bring in RITA. Can you please elevate Robbie from RITA, because that's another important dimension. Robbie, thank you for being with us. Thank you for being patient. You're representing RITA. Could you please explain to our viewers what is RITA and what's your mandate?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Atick, for having me. The Registration, Solvency and Trusteeship Agency, RITA, as many of you may know, RITA is a semi-autonomous body under Ministry of Constitutional and Legal Affairs with the mandate to register birth, marriage, divorce, and adoption in Tanzanian mainland. We also administer insolvency and trusteeship service. The birth registration system in mainland Tanzania suffer on 3 counts: accessibility in terms of distance, and ability in terms of cost, and low awareness. From this results, low level of registration.
What's the level right now?
Sorry?
Robbie, what's the level right now of registration for under 5?
49.4%.
49.4%.
For under 5.
For under 5 are registered.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So
can I continue?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. Accordingly, starting 2012, our focus has been on simplifying the best registration system by making it one-stop, one-visit process, decentralized system from the 3-step multiple visit process in the decentralized system. And as a simplified best registration system, health facilities and wards offices has been appointed as the registration point, and it delegated with the responsibility of registration as well as certification. Under this system, no fee charged for registration, and the first copy of the birth certificate is provided for cost of immediately after registration. So far certificates, we issue 5 million under 5, in 18 regions under the new system. And we have planned to replicate the same model throughout mainland Tanzania by 2022. This system is implemented by government as RITA, together with UNICEF and partnership with Otaigo as a mobile provider, with funding from Government of Canada. Parallelly, we start investing in use of technology, but in our case, the CRV's business process is guided the use of technology and not vice versa. At headquarters, we have full automated backend, and all district registrar offices are computerized and connect to our backend system. Below district level, we use mobile phones to capture birth registration data at registration points under the simplified birth registration system once the registration is completed. Okay, on the link of the backend, with other services, here also we follow the gradual approach. So far, RITA backend system have been integrated with NIDA, Immigration Department, National Health Insurance Fund, Public Service Social Security Fund, and we are working on the pursue integration with other services such as electronic immunization registry, health management information system, client master client registry, to mention a few.
Robbie, one second, Robbie. How large is your backend database? How many records? Can you give us an estimate of how big that database is in terms of how many people do you have in it?
In our backend system, we're having more than 10 million.
Okay.
8 million birth registration, and death is 2 million.
The rest is 2 million. Now, you are not going to be creating a catch-up. There's no value in trying to digitize physical records into electronic records. You're just getting the new flow, right? I mean, let me try to understand what your strategy is. Do you want to get all the new children, or do you also want to go back and get the adults?
Okay. Here, for under 5, we establish the sustainable system. Once they are born, they have been registered. And right. For the above, there's a system, as of now, we have digitized records under simplified birth registration system. For that under 5, I said earlier. And also we have a system for under 5, for above 5. For those records of the past we plan to digitize once we are done with this the present record. But okay. Also we have online system for the adults to register themselves.
Oh, so to self-declare, register themselves. Okay, I understand. Okay, so basically the future looks like you're going to get all the new kids, all the new births registered in a digital system. You make that available. Yeah. Over time, that will gain value, but you might have a discretionary database where people could register themselves and declare themselves, and then you could check against physical records to try to harmonize and validate. You will also be making your database available to NIDA as a way, and to immigration as a way to vet and validate. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
RITA and immigration are already included on those systems. So for the parents and the adults above 18, they use NIN to register the late registration.
Okay, I understand. Okay, I want to keep going. We've got a lot if we stay on this topic. I want to move to TASAF, which is the Tanzania Social Action Fund. That's another user of identity. Could you please elevate Josephine? And also, I believe we also have Philippine. Both of you can be on. Philippine, are you on? So Philippine comes on board. I think social protection was the subject of one of the episodes that we covered recently, and the role of social protection has become incredibly important due to COVID and the economic aftermath of that. So Tanzania Social Action Fund, I will ask either one of you, Philippine or Josephine, first introduce to our viewers what is TASAF and what's your mandate, when were you formed, and so we start from there.
Thank you, Atick. I'll take before Josephine. It's my pleasure being in this forum. Tanzania Social Action Fund, that is TASAF, was established in the year 2000 by the government of Tanzania as one of the initiatives towards poverty reduction among its citizens by using CDD, that community-driven development approach. And the initial, we have 3 TASAFs already that have been implemented. We have TASAF 1, TASAF 2, that was basically largely based on development of infrastructure. It was from year 2000 to year 2013, and later TASAF 3, which is the 3rd phase now, from 2012 to 2023, which is implementing productive social safety net, PSSN, with a view of putting in place building blocks for social protection system, hence supporting poor households to graduate out of poverty and take advantage of other government initiatives to sustain other income and expenditures. And this productive social safety net, which is PSSN, it's implemented in Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar in all project area of authorities, which are 187 areas. Yes.
What's the scope of the people that you serve? How many households, how many individuals does TASAF 1, 2, or 3, TASAF 3 cover or impact at this stage in time? So we understand the size of this activity.
Okay, TASAF 3 is the program itself. It's basically it's for cash transfer, and we have about 1.1 million households with about 5.4 million beneficiaries. That and the aim of this PSSN is for to increase income consumption, improve household ability to cope with shocks among vulnerable population. So mostly it's vulnerability, while enhancing protecting human capital of their children. And in order to do this, that's what we provide the cash condition transfers. And there are types of it. If you may give me a time, I'll be able to give details on that.
Yeah, I understand. More importantly, how do you identify your beneficiaries? What are the identification mechanisms you use to identify beneficiary and eliminate fraud and also facilitate authentication of the beneficiaries?
That's a very good question, Atick. We have 3-stage targeting mechanism that we are used to determine, because those are most of the beneficiaries, almost 70% of beneficiaries are already on programs. We remain with 30%. That will be done in a couple of months to come. Those we have to determine the extreme poor household or vulnerable household by using. First is geographical mechanism. This is a mechanism used to identify the poorest districts, wards, regions, and communities. That we have villages, and back in Zanzibar we have shayas. And this was using we use the household budget survey. We don't do on our own. We use household budget survey to give us a statistics. And the first TASAF used the 2011 and 2012 household budget result that give us the secondary data as a basis for the PSSN. And then we have second, that after geographical selection, we have a community-based targeting approach that we use the community itself as to prepare the preliminary list of extreme poor and vulnerable households at their communities. And then finally, we have proximity test. It's a statistical formula, PMT, that is applied to households on the preliminary list of poor households proposed by community members to verify their eligibility. And this mechanism aimed to ensure that only poorest communities are using the community knowledge to reach the poorest household within the selected communities to minimize inclusion and exclusion and inclusion errors. So we make sure that we have only the poor, which are 70%, as I said, and we started in March 2013, and now we are about to complete this 30% on January, April 2021.
But I mean, this is the targeting, so you can identify in terms of eligibility. How about identify in terms of the personal identity? Do you need a NIN in order to be in your register, or you are able to issue an ID that is specific to TASF?
Partly, I'll talk about it, but Josephine will be catching from me. After identification, we register the household, not a person, a household. So this household is given a temporary ID, program ID. It's a temporary because it has only a unique program number, and this card is not authenticated. That it is a simple card lamination with a name and that number on it. So we are using a goodwill at the community level to make sure that this person is the one who is carrying that card, because no photo, no authentication on it. But now NIDA comes in, and Josephine will take from there how busy we are now making sure that NIDA is giving us access as a primary identity for our beneficiaries.
So TASF will be using NIDA in order to identify the beneficiaries. This is inside your unified registry of beneficiaries, your URB, is that what you call it?
Yes, URB is Unified Registry of Beneficiaries. And you want me to talk about a bit about the Unified Registry of Beneficiaries? Those are after identifying, yes. You want me to talk about it? TASF has in place the Unified Registry of Beneficiaries. It means it's a database which carries all the information of poor household that we have mentioned, and which is this registry is gradually being transformed into national register, social register. At the beginning, it was only for the program, but now as we go gradually, it goes for national social register. And it helps the program to keep track of beneficiaries. Also, it is a source for other programs interested in providing other support in the same target group. So whoever comes, there's no need of reinventing the wheel. They use the same data that we have, so they can continue with the plan that they have for the community.
Okay. Now, very quickly, last thing. Are your cash transfers under TASF digitized? Are you sending them electronically, or you're still using hard physical cash?
Well, it was physical cash in the beginning, but in this phase 2, we are going to digitize the whole, the cash transfers. We have started, we have been piloting the electronic payments for the past 3 years for the 10% of the beneficiaries, in which beneficiaries were being paid directly into their accounts, whether it is the bank account or mobile e-wallet. Yeah, but again, there are some of the beneficiaries who could not manage to have to open an account for some reasons. So again, we, together with Ministry of Finance, we developed a means of payment that we use payment service providers agents to pay our beneficiaries after successful authentication using biometric that based on NIDA IDs.
Okay, so basically we're seeing now the emergence of an identity ecosystem that uses the national ID number in order to make the identification of beneficiaries more efficient, and also the payment of cash transfers much more accountable and with a lower cost, because you don't have to send cash to the field, etc. So I'm hoping that this story we will be able to visit again in the months to come to see how cash transfers are leveraging digital identity. We're running out of time, but I don't want to deprive our viewers of a very important and a question that they keep asking about. As you know, all of your institutions, all of the institutions that we've heard about today either generate or consume or store identity data. And so data is a very, very sensitive subject. And so the question that everybody would like to know, how does Tanzania legal frameworks deal with data protection and privacy? And here I have with us a special guest. We thank Femi Omer, who is used to be the executive director of the African Legal Network Academy, and who is now launching a Data Law Services Africa, just to give us a few minutes, an overview of where does data protection laws and regulations stand in Tanzania. Femi, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Real pleasure and privilege to be on this platform today. So what I want to say is it's always a difficult subject matter for legal regimes which may not have a kind of strong tradition in having these types of laws within the panoply, if you like. But it's one that needs to be addressed, and one shouldn't shy away from that issue. I think the state of affairs with the Tanzanian legal system in respect of personal data protection, and I think that's key to kind of identify, is that it follows as opposed to having a very direct data protection privacy act or regime, it follows a sectorial type of mapping. So it will look at, for example, the financial sector, it will look at the telecommunication sector, and so on and so forth. And to that extent, it can be fairly robust. But what tends to happen, like many of the laws that attempt to deal with a particular subject matter, is that there are gaps that need to be filled. And I don't think it's an overt criticism. It's one that we say demands a kind of rationalization of the existing laws. And then in lots of ways, whether a particular state, Tanzania, it may be another African state, wishes to deploy a comprehensive data protection regime. So it's either or, and in lots of respects, the trend is to have an overarch regime that deals with these issues. Now, I don't have like a lot of time to go through each and every one of these. I think the key takeaway is that it runs along the sector lines, which to a large degree is deficient. But here's the thing, and this is a very important takeaway in my view, which is this, that the protection of data, personal data, is no longer a domestic affair. It's very much an international affair. What one does in its own jurisdiction is a matter obviously for a sovereign state. But as we know, we live in an internationalized world, regardless of how nationalistic a given country is or is not. And what that means is that the storage, the handling, and the transfer of data becomes critical to doing business. It becomes critical for that transactional exchange between countries across borders, be it within Africa itself. And obviously we are now in the age where, you mentioned, Doctor, the East Africa community. We are now in the age of the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. These are things that are developing. And we've got, in my view, to kind of have that internal conversation between countries within Africa as to what is the model that the continent is going to use. Now, here's another thing. We are obviously affected by, some of the power blocks. And let's face it, the European Union is a power block, whether we like it or not. And they have instituted a very robust regime. I'm sure many of the attendees here today will be familiar, at least to a certain degree, on what's called the General Data Protection Regulation. Now, this, to all intents and purposes, has extraterritorial effect. We are in Africa, like in America, like in Asia, affected by that regime. And just so that views are clear about this, I think it was in August this year, the American data protection regime was declared to be deficient in terms of the European data regulation. So this is not just a question of African jurisdiction not being able to meet that particular standard. It could be anywhere. Now, does that mean we're doomed? I think not. What needs to happen, in my view, is yes, as I said, there needs to be a rationalization of our laws. There needs to be, if you like, a specific data protection privacy regime in place. Kenya are doing it, Rwanda are about to do it, and I understand Tanzania is on the cards anyway. But before those actually happen, and even if they do happen, because it doesn't mean that they're going to mirror exactly what GDPR says, it is, do you have in place the mechanisms and the processes which can mitigate against falling foul of those protections that other jurisdictions provide? And I think that's really important. And we say that there are now technological advances which can assist nation states, businesses, private sector, public sector organizations that can map and understand, rationalize, identify, and put in place systems of data management which not only identify value, but also gain compliancy across multiple jurisdictions. Excellent. So that's what I'd like to put forward as key takeaways.
Thank you, Femi. Just to summarize, basically there's no omnibus, there's no overarching law that exists for data protection and privacy that mirrors GDPR in Europe. But there are several sectoral, maybe the Telecommunication Act, EPOCA, maybe the Financial Act, maybe the Health Act, that might have provisions governing the need for data protection. There are no, to my knowledge, any specific acts that govern the civil registration data protection. And I don't want to get into the details of this, just to say that there are several laws. It's a patchwork at the moment. But what Femi is saying is that before an overarching law can be passed, there needs to understand the regional and Pan-African implications, because everybody's going to head into a data regime where there will be flow of data across jurisdictions, and also there is a cross-jurisdictional scope, which comes because your citizens travel somewhere else, like in GDPR, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a rich topic, but unlike other countries that we've discussed recently, there is no simple answer by saying there's one law covering everything. It's a patchwork. Okay, Femi, thank you for that. Sorry, we could not spend more time. Hopefully in the future we'll have more discussions, interactions. I'd like to bring in all of the panelists who are here with us, just so that each one can give us 1 or 2 minute parting wisdoms, just to say, this is sort of a lesson I've learned. Clearly, Tanzania had a lot of lessons to teach us today. I'm very pleased that we've hosted we've hosted all of these illustrious agencies. And so we've learned about the importance of having a compelling application, the importance of having the political will to drive it, the importance of not looking at short-term cost implications, but looking at the long-term picture and saying, now I can have a more robust and secure system where I can offer new services and new product, integration with other agencies. I see a spirit of cooperation where NIDA is not alone. The ecosystem, many of you keep asking, what is an ecosystem? You see it. An ecosystem is basically an environment where data can be securely shared in order to identify supply and demand. So there are people who can supply identity, and there are people who can validate the identity. For example, immigration can help NIDA validate identity. NIDA is a supplier, but they need other sources to vet and validate. TASAF has its own ID system. Zanzibar has its own ID system. They could be suppliers, complementary, etc. But all of you work within a framework of open standards, hopefully interchange data in a safe and secure way, respectful of privacy, etc. So anyway, this has been a wonderful story. Time flew very quickly. So I want to go back just really 1 or 2 minutes, leave our audience with one parting message. I will start with the honor with Dr. Arnold.
For this opportunity to say something. What I want to say from what you've learned in Tanzania is that in the first place, we need collaboration among the various institutions who are both maybe who are facilitating the collection of data and those who are facilitating maybe the use of data, and also those who are using the data. A close collaboration among those 3 parties will not only ensure availability of data, but also efficiency in the use of data, and also will promote the benefit which are expected from the establishment of NIDA and the issue in terms of the issuance of data or identity to the wider part of the community. That is what I can say for the moment.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold. I will move to Shaban Abdallah from Zanzibar, parting wisdom. Unmute, please, Shaban.
Well, in this discussion, I've learned a lot of things, but I think one important thing that you've mentioned, Dr. Atick, is that we as Zanzibaris and our agents of ZCSRA, we have to cooperate with NIDA because NIDA is covered the both part of the Tanzania, Tanzania, mainland and Zanzibar, so we can share many things. So I think the process of cooperation between these 2 agencies will help maybe even those institutions we need to verify the data. So I think the most important thing that I have learned is that we need to improve this cooperation between these 2 agencies. However, we are doing our job separately, but we have to cooperate or to increase the cooperation. And I've learned that the importance of identification, that not only for identifying, but the whole development depend upon the identification. Yeah, thank you very much.
Exactly, thank you. So separate but coordinated is what you need to be. That's what an ecosystem is. Mr. Benedict Ndomba from eGovernment, your parting wisdom for our group.
Yeah, from our perspective, I would like to say the eGovernment promotes standards which are open, non-vendor dependent, and non-technology dependent to enable much more broader interoperability of the national ID to all other parties to have more use cases. Thank you.
And that's the wisdom of an ecosystem, is to allow through open standards, the interoperability, and so that you're not locked by any vendor or by any technology, but allow better ideas and better solutions to come and compete. That's what an ecosystem should, if done right, should allow that. So, and you are as the one of the custodians of the ICT in the country, it is your regulatory kind of oversight that's important to keep an eye on that. Thank you for that. Bank of Tanzania, Thomas Mongella, please, with the parting wisdom. Please unmute. Unmute, Thomas. Could you please unmute?
Oh, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you're unmuted.
I would like to end by saying a strong, unique, and biometric ID is the way to go. Full rollout of the such ID for countries like ours in developing world has many benefits. One of them, key of them, I would say, is financial inclusion. With enhanced financial inclusion, it helps countries to, alleviate poverty for its citizens and the, poor part of the population. And there are also benefits in terms of keeping the financial system healthier, say during KYCs, during processes for credit ratings. That has benefit in terms of poverty alleviation. So for me, I would say countries, particularly in developing countries, should make sure they adopt a stronger, unique biometric ID. And it helps again in terms of, having a cash-light society. And that has benefits to the microeconomic stability of any country. Thank you.
Words of wisdom. Thank you for that. Robbie from RITA. Words of wisdom.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Atick, for having RITA in this panel.
Robbie, we have an echoing system. Can you solve that? We'll come back to you. Joseph, could you give your parting words of wisdom while Robbie solves her echo problem?
Thank you, Joseph. I'm very happy to hear that NIDA is planning to use, actually is considering using the second means of verification by using face or iris, because as we are going now, TASAF is going to use NIDA as a primary identification of its beneficiaries. And on our payments using the biometric authentication, we have experienced a bit of challenges to read some of the fingerprints, again, especially for those who are very old, and again, depending on their kind of labor that they are doing. So for me, this is a very good thing to do, and I will appreciate if we'll, go a bit fast on this one, because it will really help on the use of the as a payment module, as Thomas has said. This will be very possible if we have an alternative means of verification instead of just relying on fingerprints. Thank you.
So it's basically more inclusion, no one left behind. So multi-biometrics for more inclusion, other forms of authentication for more inclusion. Okay, good words of wisdom. Robbie, have you solved your echoing problem?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Atick, for having us in this panel.
There is another user in the room that has that. Is there anybody else in the room with you that has that? It's not possible to hear you.
Okay, can I continue?
No, you can't. Sorry, Robbie, we can't hear you. So while you're trying to figure this out, Linda, you are a representative of the private sector, and we are learning from Tanzania how important it is to open up the collaboration with the private sector. So give us your parting words of wisdom.
Thank you. Yes, so as we've all seen, none of this would have been possible without collaboration. And for us, we believe for other African markets, it's important for the industry at large to collaborate with the public sector. But we also believe that biometric information in it's opening a lot of opportunity for the telecom industry, especially in ensuring security as we offer communication services, as we are able to identify our customers better. But over and above that, we believe with this information, we'll be able to integrate more services, including banking services, IMT integration, and the likes. So we do believe that continuous collaboration with NIDA and other public entities will really go a large way, especially a long way, especially with the inclusion of multiple identification biometric identification upgrades that will be upcoming. We believe that will be will have a positive impact to the telco industry.
In fact, I should close by saying, of course, the ID4Africa movement congratulates Tanzania for these accomplishments. It is work in progress, but the fact is you've done a lot of progress without having to increase your national debt, you've figured out ways to finance your project in partnership with the private sector. Hopefully this will pay dividends for those who partnered with you along the way. Hopefully you will recognize this platform is now going to start bringing return on investment. And so when we came in 5 years ago into Tanzania, the story was completely different. We could not paint a story like we're painting today. What Zanzibar and what Tanzania have done working in this ecosystem, it merits really the respect and the attention of all of other African nations. I think there are lots of lessons. Of course, the fact patterns may be different, and that's why we continue to feature different countries with the country progress reports, because we learn different lessons. Some countries, what Tanzania did may not be applicable. Some countries, what Nigeria did may be more applicable. So ID4Africa does not dictate or choose or select a strategy for you. We try to inform and we try to bring the fact patterns so that people can make decisions for themselves. We're here, of course, to consult and respond to any inquiries. But you've heard the lessons from Tanzania, and today it's a rich session. I think you may want to go back over the recording and see specific segments. We've reached we reached the end of this program, and we've lost Damien, so we're not able to get him on. And also Robbie, Damien, you're here. So maybe Damien, if you have any parting words of wisdom, I'll let you go. And then Robbie, if you're able to solve the problem, we'll let you on. Otherwise, we'll apologize. Damien, very quickly, parting words of wisdom.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Tanzania have promoted national ID as immigration as their security organs have supposed to support all efforts which can enable many Tanzanians to obtain national ID.
Okay, Damien, sorry, we thank you for the comments. We've lost you, the voice and video, but we're running out of time. Sorry, Robbie, are you able to solve the problem? Or I think at this point in time, I'd like to thank all of you once again for your participation and your kind time, and just wish everybody good luck, and hopefully next year we'll get another chance to get an update. So bravo and congratulations on the progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.